Welcome to Enchanting Tales, a very special series of hand-picked, heart-crafted Christmas stories brought to you by Delhi Storytellers Tribe and Kiran Nadar Museum of Art. Over the last 2 weeks, we've told you of how the fir tree became the Christmas tree and a story about Santa's gifts. And I know as Christmas draws close, each one of you is waiting for Christmas Day so that you can unbox your own Christmas gift. But have you ever wondered what would Christmas be like if Santa Claus was kidnapped? I know you're wondering, why would anybody want to kidnap Santa Claus? But let me tell you, there are dark forces in the world who are not too happy with Santa Claus and all that he stands for. My name is Rituparna Ghosh and I'm excited to take you on an enchanting, magical, adventurous ride into a retelling of Frank Baum's classic Christmas story, A Kidnapped Santa Claus. Frank Baum also wrote a fantasy novel which was called The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, which is somewhat like a biography of Santa. So hold on to your seat as we go along on an adventurous ride together. Santa Claus lived in Laughing Valley, a happy, jolly place where everything and everyone was merry and gay. Santa himself lived in a massive rambling castle where he made toys all through the year. Of course, he had little helping hands selected from the Ryls, Knooks, fairies and pixies, magical creatures who lived in the forest of Burzee. Everyone and everything in Laughing Valley was beautiful. It was a place where everyone had enough reasons to be content and happy. On the one side of Laughing Valley was the forest of Burzee, and on the other side were these massive mountains where there were caves, and inside the caves lived the demons. Now, you would imagine Santa Claus as being this lovable creature who everybody loved in the world. Let me tell you, out there in the mountains, inside the caves were demons who did not like Santa Claus. In fact, they hated him. And they hated him for a simple reason, that he made children happy. There up in the mountains were 5 caves, each of them connected to one another. Up there in front with a beautiful gateway was the cave that belonged to the demon of selfishness. Right behind him lived his brother, where lived the demon of envy. And the third cave belonged to the demon of hatred. The caves got narrower and darker as they went along. Right at the center, at the heart of the mountain, was the cave that belonged to the demon of malice. Now each of these 4 caves were connected with a narrow tunnel that went all the way to the 5th cave, the cave of repentance. A warm, fuzzy place. Now you could see, even in the darkest cave, you could see that the tunnel had been dotted by tiny footsteps who wanted to get a quick way out from one of the caves to reach the cave of repentance. For from that cave there was a gate which opened back into sunshine and light. One day, all the demons got together to have a conversation about their business. The demon of selfishness groaned and said, I'm feeling very lonely. None of the children have been visiting me. Santa's gift is keeping all of them very happy and they're not even feeling selfish. The demon of envy said, well, that's the reason why I've not been able to even coax the children into feeling a little envious of the gifts that their cousins and friends have got. The demon of hatred said, oh, yes. Well, since they haven't been walking into your caves, there's no reason to walk into mine. There's no reason to hate at all. The demon of malice just groaned and said, well, they haven't been coming into mine either. The demon of repentance said, well, if the children have not been walking into your caves, there's no reason why they should be coming into mine. The demon of malice woke up and said, it's all because of Santa. He is ruining our business. We must do something about him right now. And so the demons hatched a plot to capture Santa Claus. If only he could enter one of their caves, they could capture him and keep him there forever. The next day in the morning, the demon of selfishness walked down the mountain, went into Santa's castle, and said, "Aha! Look you out here! You're making all toys for noisy and fretful children. The same children who break your toys the minute they receive it." Santa looked up at the demon and said, "Well, yes, I make toys for noisy and fretful children, but when they receive my toys, they are happy and content." The demon of selfishness walked back into his cave and grumbled, "Ha! Santa is not selfish at all." The next day, the demon of envy decided to give it a try. He walked into Santa's castle and said, "Ho, Santa Claus! You are making toys. You make toys all through the year. But look out there. There are so many toy shops that are making better, bigger, more expensive toys than you. They make all the money. And look at you, poor old man. Nobody's willing to pay you a single old penny for your toys." Santa Claus beamed and he looked at the demon of envy and said, "Well, you see, I make toys all through the year, but I can gift the children a toy only once a year. The children deserve good toys all throughout the year, and that's where the toy shops do that for them. I'm not envious of the toy shops. It's a good thing that they are making money. As for me, I would never ever charge a penny for my gifts." The demon of envy walked back to the mountain and he grumbled, "I could not even make Santa Claus feel envious of the toy shops." The third day, the demon of hatred marched into Santa's castle and said, "Oh, old man, do you know there are many out there who do not even believe in Santa Claus? In fact, they go around telling everyone that Santa Claus does not exist. You must be hating them." Santa Claus looked up from his stools and said, "Well, if there's anyone in the world who deserves more love, it are the same people who don't believe in Santa Claus. Everybody deserves some magic." With every defeat, the demons got more desperate, anxious, and angry. They huddled together and talked amongst themselves. Their play of words was not working. It was time to use some force. And so the demons hatched another plan to kidnap Santa Claus. But everybody knew that Santa could not even be touched in Laughing Valley because he was protected by his magical assistants, his assistants that belonged to the forest of Burzee. But the only day when Santa could be touched was Christmas Eve, when he loaded his toys into his sleigh and when he was ready to go around the world delivering all the toys. That was when he was most vulnerable, and that is when he could be kidnapped. On Christmas Eve, Santa got ready for the busiest night of the year. His toys were ready, they were packed all up, they were put into sacks, and the sacks were loaded into the sleigh. Santa's heart skipped with joy. He had his list of deliveries, of addresses of little girls and boys that he would travel to, and he would give them their gifts. But that night, just as the sleigh took off into the sky, suddenly out of nowhere came a rope with the noose that bound itself around Santa. Santa tried to get out of that noose, but before he could do anything, he was whisked away from his sleigh and he floated into the sky. The demons laughed in evil, cruel glee. Look at what we've done. Tomorrow in the morning when the children wake up and don't find their Christmas gifts, they will be angry. They're going to create a lot of noise. They will storm and they will scream and shout. And their parents are going to scold all of them. And then those little ones are going to come crawling into our caves of selfishness, envy, hate, and malice. Look at what we've done, oh brothers, oh demons of the caves. Well, if you're wondering whether the demons really succeeded, I have to tell you something that the demons did not know. Now you remember, Santa had his little magical assistants, little creatures from the forest of Burzee who assisted him in making the toys. And every year when Santa went out distributing his gifts, his assistants traveled with him. That night, when Santa was kidnapped, His assistants were wrapped in a warm blanket and they were sleeping under Santa's seat. But just when the assistants didn't hear Santa's humming, they woke up. They woke up and discovered that Santa is not there. They panicked for a moment and they talked about, what do we do? What do we do? How do we go about? The toys have to be given. They have to be delivered around the world. What do we do without Santa? But they got themselves together. They recovered from the shock and said, we're going to do it. We're going to do it as well as Santa does. And so the Ryl, the Nook, the Pixie and the Fairy went around the world delivering toys to children across the world, just as Santa did. Yes, of course, there were a few slips. The drum went to the child who wanted a doll, and the doll went to the child who wanted the drum. Someone who wanted rubber boots got a sewing kit, and the one who wanted the sewing kit got the rubber boots. Thank God there weren't too many of these slips, or else the demon's evil plan would have succeeded. While the night was busy for some, it was not as cheerful for Santa, for he was worried and anxious for his gifts, for the children and his assistants. All through the night, the demons kept guard. They laughed at Santa, they taunted him, they teased him. And by daybreak, by the time Santa's assistants returned to Laughing Valley, the demon of malice walked to Santa and said, "Good morning, Santa Claus, it's Christmas Day. The children are going to wake up and not find their toys. And look, within a few hours, our caves are going to be filled with children." Santa Claus didn't say a word. He stayed quiet. It was now the turn of the demon of repentance to watch guard. He saw Santa Claus and said, "Well, my brothers don't trust me much, but now the mischief is done. I'm sorry, you will have to wait an entire year to give your gifts to children." Santa Claus sighed and said, "Well, yes, I'm sorry. It's the first time in about 100 years or more that I have failed to give toys to children." The demon of repentance looked at Santa Claus and said, "Well, you see, it's the grief of not getting their toys on Christmas Day that we hope that the children will feel a bit of selfishness, envy, hate and malice. And if they walk into these caves, there's a chance that they can come to me and I can help them and I can take them back into the world. They feel only sorry." Santa Claus looked at the demon of repentance and asked, "Tell me something. Do you never feel repentance at all?" The demon looked around and said, "Well, to be true, I'm feeling sorry myself right now. You see, somebody needs to do something really bad. They need to be selfish, evil, cruel, malicious for them to come to meet me. But look at you. You've done nothing wrong. And yet we are standing together. I'm sorry. I could do nothing to save you." And with that, the demon of repentance went and opened all the knots and the chains that bound Santa Claus. He held him by the hand and took him through the tunnel to his cave. And he opened the door that opened to the sunlight and freedom. He told Santa Claus, "I'm sorry. I hope you don't hate me. But you see, I believe that I do some good in this world." Santa Claus held his hand and said, "It's all right. I don't hate you at all. And I do think that we need you in this world. Thank you so much and Merry Christmas." And with that, Santa Claus stepped out into freedom and walked down the hill, humming his song and whistling with joy. It was a beautiful Christmas morning, and as Santa climbed down the mountain, he met an army of Ryls, Nooks, fairies and pixies, all climbing up the mountain to go and rescue Santa Claus. Well, it was Whisk the fairy who flew into the forest of Burzee. She went to the fairy godmother and told her everything about the night before. It was the fairy godmother who told Whisk that Santa Claus was up there in the caves, a prisoner of the demons. And so the magical creatures of the forest had got together to save their favorite Santa Claus. Santa Claus was happy to see them, and so were they. They were happy that Santa was unharmed. he was happy, joyful, and cheerful on Christmas morning, just as he should be. Santa said, "Well, I think we should not interfere with the demons up there. We can't do anything about them, and we should not bother about them. They have a place in the world, and I think it's all right. We can't remove everything evil. It's all right. Let them be there." Santa went down the mountain, went inside his castle with his entire army, his loyal assistants, filling him with stories of the night, of all the adventure and the misadventure, of gifting the gifts at the right address and missing a few. As for the demons up there in the caves, well, when they realized that their plan had failed, that the children did not feel selfish, envious, hateful, or malicious on Christmas Day, they knew they had failed. They also realized that it was not a good idea to interfere with Santa and his business. With Santa being surrounded with so much of love and affection and goodness, it was not the good thing to get in his way. And they never ever tried to kidnap Santa Claus again. And that's the end of the story. I hope you enjoyed listening to it. And there are more Enchanting Tales in the series, so stay tuned to Enchanting Tales, our hand-picked and heart-crafted Christmas stories brought to you by Delhi Storytellers Tribe and Kiran Nadar Museum of Art.